And Councilman Nyson, if he will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear, kind, gracious, and loving Father in heaven, as we humbly bow our heads and come before you at the beginning of this council meeting, Father, we do so with gratitude and thankfulness in our hearts. Grateful for those many blessings that thou pours out upon us each and every day. Blessings of freedoms and opportunities and views that surround us, Father, we're so grateful and thankful for. We're grateful for this great land in which we live in and for those blessings that are poured upon it. We pray that thou will continue to pour thy blessings upon it and upon its leadership. We pray for those men and women who serve so diligently to protect our freedoms and our opportunities. We pray for them and their families that they'll be watched over and blessed. We pray also for those members of our community who serve in protecting our opportunities and our freedoms here locally, that they too will be watched over and protected. We pray for those members of our community that stand in need of special blessings in their lives, that they would be blessed and provided for. We seek now for thy blessings of guidance and direction as we consider the business of the city, that thy spirit would help us to make wise and prudent decisions that might be the best benefit of our community as a whole and our betterment of the quality of our lives. Father, again, we give gratitude and we give thanks unto thee and unto thy Son and our Savior Jesus Christ for the blessings that he provides for us. And we seek for these favors and blessings at this time. We do in the name of thy Son and our Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate that. We'll move on to item 1, approval of the agenda. We need to take out 5A and B. They have asked to table those till the November 8th council meeting. Other than that, I think everything else is in order.
Mayor, I'll make the motion then that we approve the agenda as outlined, taking out items 5A and 5B and tabling them until our next meeting in November.
Second.
A motion and a second.
Ivy, aye.
Granger, aye.
Ellison, aye.
Nice and I.
Turek, aye.
Okay, item 2, announcements. Anything to announce? Go ahead.
I just want to appreciate everybody for coming out to the groundbreaking today for Black Bear Diner, and we're excited to see them going vertical and coming into our city. So thank you for that.
Yeah, the owners told me it'd be about 6 months. I told them I wanted the first French toast. So we're glad to have them there. And glad to have them there. Any item to declare as far as abstentions or conflicts?
Mayor, I'll just rephrase my, on 6D, I'm an employee of the Washington County School District, but I will be voting on that.
Thank you.
I too also declare my wife's an employee of the school district, but I too will be voting on that item.
Thank you, gentlemen. Item 4, bid award. Consideration to award the bid for the construction of the Parkway Substation. Rick Hansen, Power Director.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We held the pre-bid meeting earlier this month, and we had 7 or 8 contractors show up to it. The bids were open last week. We only had 3 bidders. Industry's pretty busy right now, so we received, of the 3 bids, RME was the low bidder, just under $1 million, and the high bidder was Bodec, about $1.4 million. RME is the one that the contractor that has previously built Coral Canyon, Sienna Hills, Buena Vista, and actually I believe they did Main Street as well. And we would recommend that the bid be awarded to them. It fits well with their schedule. In fact, they're planning on mobilizing next week, as long as we get all the paperwork in place, of course. But they're finishing up a project and just starting, so it fit really well in their schedule. So, have any questions?
Just wondered if you feel like the short number of bidders has raised the cost to us at all.
Actually, this is lower than I'd expected, so
okay.
I was expecting more of them to be in the probably 1.2 to 1.5 range.
Yeah. All right.
So actually, I think it's real favorable pricing.
Great. Well, there's no other questions, I'll make a motion that we approve awarding our Parkway Substation bid to RME for a total of $998,052.
Second.
A motion and a second.
Turek, aye.
Ellis and I.
Granger, aye.
Ivy, aye.
All right, that is awarded.
Thank you.
Item B, consideration to award the bid for the Parkway Substation 125 VDC battery system. Again, Power Director Rick Hansen.
Yes, this is for the 125 volt battery system that runs all the relays and circuit breakers within the substation. We actually bid two different kinds of batteries, a flooded cell and a sealed cell. After looking at the dimensions of the flooded cells, it won't fit really well in the control building. So we only really considered the sealed or the valve regulated batteries, and the results are in your packet with the low bidder of Alcad for just under 12 or 13,000, and they went up to as high as a little over 18. And again, a comment on that: the Alcads are the same brand and battery that we have in our other stations, and they've served us well. So I don't have any concerns at all with those. Any questions?
Yeah, I don't have any more discussions, but I'm ready for a motion. Make a motion to award the bid for the Parkway Substation 125 VDC battery system to Alcad for $12,903.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Ivy, aye.
Granger, aye.
Ellis and I.
Nice night.
Turek, aye.
All right, thank you. That is awarded also.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you. Okay, move on to item 6, ordinances. Consideration to approve an ordinance adopting the zone change request Z-17-25 to create a new planned unit development located approximately Bella Vista Drive, African SJ Property Holdings LLC.
All right, thank you, Mayor. As stated, the 2-week period, holdover period is completed for this proposed zone change of Z-1725 for the new PUD. The council received this, I think, in their emails in the last couple of days, this change. They thought over those proposals that we offered them a couple of weeks ago and changing this area, eliminating the driveways all along Bella Vista, which a lot of people a lot more comfortable with. So I just wanted to bring this up because this, of course, probably hasn't been seen by everybody, but that's that northwest corner of the project that abuts Horizons West and then south of the Nyson and the church piece up there. So this is that rearrangement that they proposed in that time. Just want to give people a little bit of chance to digest that. Also, just to put on briefly, you got some more clean elevations, and I'll just throw those on real quick for everybody to see.
So the layout that's in our packet's still the old layout.
Yeah, in the packet. We didn't change that because, again, that was brought in, so this, you have that in your email, I think, that new proposal. That's why I wanted to put it on Elmo. This is the more cleaned up version of the elevation on the single story of the 3 residential detached standalone homes. This is the single family 1-story. This is one of 2-story elevations. And then the third is the other 2-story elevation. Now those floor plans are still in your packet. If you want, you can bring those up, but these are just more of a cleaner version of the elevations that they wanted to have you see. And here's all 3 of the homes. these are the
They-
single-family detached.
They don't have dimensions on those, do they?
No, they're not. We kind of talked about that, but they'd have to fit on their pads. You know, all the pads range anywhere from 30 feet to 32 feet in the width. I don't think they're going to have any problems with the length on any of them. But I kind of looked them over, and a little bit of draftsman came in to me, and they, you know, they'll probably fit. And most of those, the 30-foot wide ones are all going to have to mostly be that single story. They could probably fit one of these 2 stories on the 30-foot pad, but the entries will definitely be, you know, squeezed in a little bit. And maybe the bedroom on the sides would. But I think they could all fit on the 30 to 32 foot. Just with my experience in drawing way too many house plans in my lifetime. So
Can you show us where these homes would go on the,
yeah, I'll be glad to do that. Well, actually, those homes. Let's just stay with the single families.
okay,
Any one of these pads that you see throughout here and down here could have one of those homes sitting on it. That would be what they'd have to have.
okay.
Is what's presented to you. So it would be these single family lots right here that are below Elvis on the east end, and then any of these pads over here on each side of Elvis Drive and north of Lonnie Lake.
Are those 2-car garages?
No, they're all singles. They're all single car garages in these proposals.
Are there driving restriction or parking restrictions on those roads?
There probably would be at 34 feet. And when the plats came in, we'd probably be having them post no parking on those because of the width, which we've done in past, you know, private street proposals that you've seen. In fact, the ones you approved 2 weeks ago, 2 of them had restricted no parking, you know, that had to be posted and signed. And I'd imagine the fire chief would do the same because these streets are fairly identical. So private streets would definitely have no parking on them.
Hey, Drew, one question while we're talking streets. That little alleyway, obviously, either it's not to scale or it's,
Now, give me an idea where.
in this side section here, we've got your entrance street there coming in, but this next one between the, yep, right there. That street, what is the width of that? Are we looking to drive cars? I mean, I guess I don't know what's happening. I can see where they could use garages on the other one, but we got that row of homes there that got access. How are they gonna access those?
That will have to, yeah, because that's going to be a tough one because I kind of saw that too when it first came in. We'd have to work and see, yeah, what would happen on that. I think they have a little bit of room because of the distance.
Well, I just looked at scale. I mean, if that other one's 34 feet, this one here is about half that. So it's like, okay.
Yeah, well, any alley, or if it's going to be used for any kind of an access, we make them be 20-foot minimum. That's just, we don't allow anything less than that as 20-foot minimum. Now, I'm not sure how they want, you know, what these are going to, because they do have to have somehow, and I'm talking about probably units, well, the units 16 through 21 are the ones I might be more concerned about because they've got to have a driveway as part of them.
Correct. Yeah, that's the one that
Et cetera.
I'm concerned about. That's, yeah.
Now, you know,
the other
units
ones
10 through
access either
15
way, but-
could be off of the street on the north end.
Correct. I agree with that.
But
21 through
16 through 21 are the ones that could be the challenge, but we'd just have to work them through and see what would happen there. So getting back to Councilwoman Granger's, it would be any of these paths that you see would have one of these 3 home designs on them. So I hope
Which
that
means-
answers that question, I hope.
Well, with any of those plans, what this is showing is you've got 10 foot from the roadway to the garage door.
But
Give
then
or
when you
take.
go to the floor plans, which I can bring those up, but bring them up, you know, you can bring, they actually have that they all have to have a 20-foot minimum driveway. The garages should be set back on some of them,
It didn't appear that way on the
on the
elevation.
elevations, yeah. But they'll have to have that 10-foot minimum driveway. triplexes that, pretty much run south on Bonnie Lane there, and then that one cul-de-sac. These will be those, and they'll just be the series of them, but this is the front elevations on those. And then last but not least, just a little cleaner version of what the apartments. I'm sorry this is so grainy usually, because my photos are actually pretty nice, but might just be the lighting or whatever. But you've seen them in your emails. I think is a little bit cleaner version, but this is just showing it with the parking area, et cetera, and kind of how those apartments will look. So they just kind of brought those in as well. So now hopefully you've also had a chance to see the write-up they did from that we won't talk about that. That's on the next one anyway. So
Apparently in our parking ordinance, we don't require covered parking then in any of that.
There, actually, I'll have to go back on the apartments. I can't remember if the apartments actually does require that there be a covered parking. I think it may not in apartments. Now in townhomes, for a townhome project, it would require always, because it's considered a residential dwelling. So any of our residential dwellings in the city, whether they be a townhome or whatever, always require at least one covered. I have to go back and see if we require that on the apartments. I just can't remember. But it is a PUD, so that could be, one of the conditions of approval that you could put on there as a council. So with that, just to remind you that, again, this is a 2-week period. The Planning Commission held their public hearing. They, by a vote of 4-1, recommended approval of Z-17-25 for the zone change from the old PUD to the new proposed PUD onto the city council. And of course, with all the conditions that were attached to it. We've had a few changes. Just to remind you, the public hearing was closed, but now that stuff's been brought forward for you to view and you've seen it, it is the council decision. You could open that up, but again, any comments on the new stuff could only be geared toward the new things, that were brought in, which is what I'd probably suggest and
Just
pass
that
on
stuff
to you.
off to the west there.
Just that stuff, because the elevations really didn't change. They just gave you a cleaner, more vibrant picture. So if the council decides to open up the public hearing, which I would recommend that you'd probably do anyway because of this, but the comments could only be geared toward this particular area, not rehashing all the stuff we heard last time. So, but with that, Mayor, I'll be glad to answer any questions that the council might have above what we've already discussed.
Drew, has there been any, they had some proposed couple of units over on the 300. Is that still showing as part of this?
It's on.
It's on there. Let me.
It's on the one.
There it is right there. Okay.
Again, that is their proposal to you. Planning Commission's had some talk about this too, and I know there's been some folks that have a little bit of angst about that, and others that say, well, it's right next to Cherokee Springs, so it's not going to be a downgrade to the area by any means that way, other than maybe just adding one more. But again, it wouldn't be driveways; it would be a kind of an entrance and exit, parking wise. All the parking would be on with inward, and so they'd all be coming out always facing forward, etc. So.
Okay.
Anything else I can answer for the council?
Probably just have the applicant come up.
Okay.
Can we have the applicant?
Steve Howcroft. Can I answer any
Nobody
questions,
else,
ma'am?
obviously, the first question I have is, what is the width of your driveway there in this new proposed?
It's an alleyway. It's 20 feet.
So that's 20 feet wide.
Yeah.
10 foot, if that's the scale, and then I could see where that, probably.
All of these units,
In and out.
all of these units do have two parking places on the pad. One garage and then at least another parking, so they don't have to park on the street.
So that parking would be in their driveway, so one in the
In their
garage, one in
driveway,
the
yeah. mhm.
From the original, the other proposal, you've dropped the units by 5.
That's correct. And it's just in this one area here is where we lost all 5 units.
Now, is this on the end of the streets? Is that parking in the middle section there? Is that parking?
It is, it's parallel parking, there's 4 spots.
So there's 4 spots.
Lines, but
See, that's one of my concerns. If we have any visitors that ever show up, obviously they're no parking on the streets. Where do we put them?
Well, there's parking on both sides, but like he says,
Yeah, there's-
Drew says there's 4 on each side.
So we got a total of 8.
Yeah,
So only 8 visitors allowed.
Well, part of the issue I have with the parking is if it's sold to, it was brought up in the public forum that it's gonna be starter families and, starter homes, a lot of it. And typically a single car garage, that's where the toys go, where the stuff goes. And so you've got the parking on the driveway, but then you don't have
mostly
any parking on the street.
correct. All of the units have storage in them though. Some, it's tight.
For bikes and four-wheelers and
Correct.
motorcycles and toys like that. In the
Small
garage.
toys, yeah.
Starter family toys.
Yeah, in the garage.
There's been some discussion, I think, about whether this is a age restricted, intended to be an age restricted, surrounded by age restricted. And then on the other hand, there's been discussion about these are starter homes and low income or cost housing, affordable housing. I don't know. Can you address those 2 issues?
Well, the first application we had was pretty much adult community, but it was manufactured housing, and we kind of went all the way around the circle to where we tried townhomes, we've tried everything, and this obviously won't be restricted to who can buy. I mean, we'll open it to the public and sell. And I'm sure there'll be some first-time home buyers that buy in here that would rather live in an area like this than rent in an apartment. So it's not restricted. It wasn't our intent to restrict it. Like I say, the first proposal we brought to you guys was pretty much an adult community, and it was restricted, but
I don't recall it being presented as being age restricted.
no, it was presented as a manufactured housing community, open pretty much to the public, but we found in that type of marketplace, you mostly get adult people.
Well, if it's, I expressed this earlier today, if it's, first-time home buyers, younger families, or things like that, for me, I think you need to have a 2-car minimum. Because you have typically 2 drivers in the house. You have a garage that they put stuff in.
Yeah, certainly some of these plants have double garages. It's just that all of them don't. So a buyer who wanted a double garage, we would have a double. We could sell
30-foot
them.
frontage for a double garage is pretty tough.
There's a lot of them around. You need about 24 feet, so
You need 24 feet, so that
Yeah.
means you got 6 feet
yeah.
to the front door, and you've got a 10-foot setback from the street. which means your garage already has to sit 10 feet further back from that. So you're 20 feet from the street,
That's correct.
and then 24 for the garage, and your depth on them is,
I think the smallest is 46 feet depth.
These are all 60.
No, there's,
70, these aren't dimensions yet, but they range anywhere from
What is the apartment? 46 is narrow for travel.
we'll go to the west. Go right there.
28.
Nah, to the right a little bit. Those don't look like they're 46 deep. 130, 129, 128.
I believe the smallest one's 46, isn't that? Yeah.
a little bit wider on those.
With the re-layout, we pretty much eliminated a lot of shower units.
I got a lot of concerns I got a lot less concerns if it's retirement community at those dimensions.
I tend to agree. I think that where we're talking entry-level homes, I don't know that those plans lend very well to that. And I do have some concern about being able to get in and out with the roads so tightly together. I have a concern about that.
I'm probably in the minority from a lot of people, but in looking at the overall plan, the apartment, I think, is pretty well laid out, actually. I know that there's a need for it, and given the circumstances of the property behind the storage facility, there's probably works well there. And I like what you did, to the south around the amenities, in working with that area down in there.
I might point out also that all those rim lots, they're minimum of 40 width. So,
No, I saw that. They're a little bit wider. So
yeah, there's a lot
concern with
more
those.
room there
You can
to work.
get 2-car garages on
Yeah.
comfortably, and
Yeah,
I still think your setback from the street at 10 feet's pretty shallow.
but all the garages will be 20 feet.
I understand. And you've got room on that one, 40 by 70 to play with.
Yeah, you do.
But the other areas down, to the west and north, given the fact that they're open to just about any use, concern me a lot more.
So or what you're suggesting that we restrict everything west of Bonnie Lane to adult community? I'm not sure I'm understanding what you're suggesting.
Well, what I'm suggesting is if you're going to open it up to, if it's age restricted on all of that, both west and east, then I'm less concerned than if it's first time home buyers or starter homes or general public. The other issue you got with is private streets. You just don't have on-street parking.
Yeah,
And like we discussed the other day, if it's private streets and you've got first time home buyers in there, they don't typically have the funds to be assessed the maintenance. I mean, and granted, you can deal with it on an HOA, but we hear of problems right and left,
well, we feel there's really a need in the community for places for first-time home buyers to buy. And we feel like,
Well,
I don't disagree with you.
yeah,
I just think you lose a bunch of density in this to make it work. I think you need to rework this to make that a reality. Go to public streets and ensure there's a 2-car minimum on the houses.
that would lend a lot better for entry-level homes, I think.
Mr. Halcott, one of the things that I had in the public hearing I floated, and I actually floated with your representative as well, is also flopping your parking area to the other side, which then benefits. It gives these homes some parking. It gives your apartment some parking, some overflow parking, to where it sits out there now, all it is wasted space.
the intent is to gate that. That's the problem with using it for public parking. People want to make sure their boats and their trailers are secure, so
So it's secure, it's storage parking is what it is.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
places
All right,
where
wasn't
people,
presented that way. It was presented as other parking. And
yeah.
so now that I know that storage parking, I understand. Long-term storage.
I suspect that a lot of the people who rent those storage units will be in the apartments. Any other questions?
There's been discussion arisen about additional access, the additional road. Can you talk about that?
1100 East.
Are you talking about 11th East? We are going to have to improve that road, and we want to improve it for second access all the way out. And we've been working with Lester to align it with the intersection and the road going to the north from there. And because of that, we've made some adjustment with the mobile home park, and we're in the process of getting all that approved, but that will be fully improved for a second access.
Is there anything that binds that agreement right now?
Just so we've committed to the city to do it.
Is it on our conditions, Drew?
The holdup is Winter Haven. A lot of their residents are out, and now we can actually have a public meeting with them too, because it is reworking their entrance.
Part of the problem is they want us to improve the access into Winter Haven. And to do that, we've got to trade them ground, and they weren't willing to commit to do that without having more people involved. So they put it off until people started coming back.
So is that looking better now to have those discussions? Are the people coming back?
I'm sure we'll be able to work it out. The issue has been who's going to cover what percentage of the costs, and we pretty well, I think, have that resolved as if they're in agreement with it, you know, and we're covering most of the costs.
But you're not sure that they're in agreement. It's still kind of a negotiation.
Well, it's the few people here who were representing Winter Haven wouldn't commit without being able to vote, have a homeowner association vote. So they put it off until the people got back.
Well, of course, this discussion's gone on for months about 1100 East, and I appreciate your efforts in getting that built out. But for me personally, I don't know how the rest of the council feels. Having that written down and having it with a timeline and a build out line is something that I think is very prudent.
We do too.
I think
we
everyone's
feel,
best efforts is
we
still
feel
there.
it has to be completed, and we can complete it now. It just that it won't completely align with the road going north, and Lester feels pretty adamant that that be done. If we couldn't work anything out with Winter Haven, we would just extend it on the right of way that we now have. But we do have a right of way that goes clear to Telegraph, and so the worst case scenario is we would improve it as it is, and it just wouldn't line up the way Lester would like to see it line up.
When you're discussing lining it up with the north side of Telegraph where it meets 1100, does the big power pole come into play there at all? Is it out of the way? I went and
Maybe.
It is.
Goes over, we're able to get our lines to line up within the.
Because moving that would be a nightmare.
On the sketch, Brandy Walker, Civil Science, on the sketch, the large power pole was designed to miss the radius of the new curb. However, you can see to the left of it, or to the west, that power pole that Drew's pointing to, it needs to come out along with all those joint utility boxes that are perched there currently. Drew had the conditions up, and it is a condition on our approval that 1100 needs to be developed with this project. Number 10 on there. And then the traffic study actually that has been submitted and reviewed and accepted by Public Works does dictate the trigger point on when that has to go in.
Is that trigger point on your building schedule or on a timeline
It's on a unit count.
before the development?
Yeah, it's on an intersection, before an intersection.
Do all of you understand what the problem is, right now, the road goes in right here into Winter Haven, and it doesn't line up, and Lester's afraid that if we have a road going on the Telegraph there, and Winter Haven goes on 100 feet to the east, that it's going to be a problem. So Lester would like to turn that road. I think we have a drawing
Yeah,
somewhere.
for further explanation of that, Steve's making a good point. So Sunflower Drive is that first portion of it, about first 200 feet, is a public street owned by Washington City. Lester's intent is to shut that off. So that's outside and above our project. Lester would like to see Sunflower Drive terminated, and then they would actually gain access a little bit further, about right north. That's a maintenance shed that you can kind of see in the bottom southwest corner there. That's where the new access would come in. So Winter Haven's access is something that the city's been working through separately than us, even to try to take Sunflower and turn it into the new 1100 alignment and eliminate Sunflower from going on the Telegraph, because it's kind of dangerous. As you can see how close it is to 1100 East coming from the north right now. The residents of Winter Haven, when they're coming out, they're in the opposing intersections right there.
Seen that layout. They basically flip-flop the
Yeah.
driveway and the,
It curves
storage.
into us,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, this,
All become storage.
yes, then Washington City would thus give that street back to the Winter Haven community, and then would dedicate the new alignment. So there's a lot going on that's outside of just us 1100 East access. It's actually involving the city and with the Winter Haven community.
On that condition 10 of building 1100, what is the trigger with that? Because it just said it's built as part of the project. Does that mean it's the last thing that goes in on the project? Does it mean it's the first thing that goes into the project? What is the trigger for that?
We will have a development agreement with the city, and we'll work those issues out as we do the development agreement. Usually it comes after the zoning, but we've had discussions with Lester. Of course, Lester would like it all in as soon as possible. We would like to phase the various parts because we've got to have a turn lane on Bella Vista. We've got to run the flood control down to 3rd East, and we've got to improve 11th East here. So the details haven't been worked out, but we've been negotiating with Lester on that. But as you can see, 11th East goes clear to Telegraph now, and we don't need Winter Haven to do what we want to do. We're just trying to accommodate Lester in closing that road down and having another access, which will go on to 11th East. So that's what slowed us up. You know, we have committed all along to do 11th East clear out to Telegraph.
I just want to clarify a couple things. It's not Lester, it's Public Works. So I've been heavily involved with all this that's going on as well. So one of the issues is if we don't bring those two roads together and make it one road and line up with 1100 East, we will have to put a median in Telegraph and restrict any left-hand turning movements out of 1100 East coming out of their development, as well as coming out of Winter Haven, which nobody really wants to see that. That's what kind of is getting the two together to work. Kind of the alignment like they had shown here was that the road would come up, they would turn into here, and come into their road, which would come out and about like this. It won't line up perfectly with 1100 East, but 1100 East also has to line over on the opposite side of the road as well. But it gives us a lot better intersection for these people to use. We get numerous calls from the Winter Haven folks about they want to actually put a stop on Telegraph because they can't get out and make their left-hand turning movements there.
Do you see at a point in time when we will get a stoplight there
It would all be based on
on
warrants.
numbers?
Yeah.
So Mike, it kind of sounds like that we need some further discussion on this.
Not necessarily. They just need to work it out with the Winter Haven folks. And
Well,
and we've been
but-
heavily involved with that.
Those
The
details are what
building of it is
concern
going
me
to be
though.
based on the traffic study, and I don't know the numbers, but it'd be, the traffic study spells out there's X number of units can be built before this road has to be built and put in. But it would all be, on our end, we wouldn't even allow construction until this is basically worked out with the Winter Haven. We wouldn't even give them approved construction drawings until this is worked out, this access.
Well, you give them construction to a point, right?
No, we
Or
wouldn't even
nothing
give that.
at all.
Unless this is worked out with an agreement with Winter Haven, we wouldn't even give them a construction approved drawings.
Okay.
But the building of it would be based on what the impact study says. This is when the trigger point when this is
Triggers it.
needed.
Okay.
Drew, would you talk to me a little bit about affordable housing? When are we at affordable housing? How large, how costly?
I'd like to hit just one other quick thing.
Oh,
You're
sorry,
talking
I'm sorry.
about road widths in their development. So just to give you an example, the Horizons West, which is right next door to them, they have 30-foot roads in their development. The Cherokee Springs, they have 36-foot roads, and those are all private roads in there, just to give you an idea of some of the road widths.
Appreciate that. That's good to know.
And that's fine. Those are an age-restricted community, right?
Right.
So let me hijack this for just a second. I don't know how to hijack it.
She has to go to Apple TV.
Oh, how do I go to Apple TV?
No,
How do I bring?
You know how to get on that shit.
Scroll it
Oh,
up.
I got a new. You tell me how to get on Apple TV.
Which one do you want to go? You need to pick something.
Cherokee
What
has
do you pick
36.
that? Okay, so what we do is just lift this guy up. Whoa, where is yours?
I know, I changed. Is it settings?
I'm gonna bring you my, let me bring you my iPad.
Mike, Bluffview Townhomes, private streets, right?
Bluffview Townhomes.
The one where everybody parks on the side of the road up the street, up on the, off the freeway.
Yes.
It's fine.
One that's a disaster zone.
Yeah, that's how you do it. Go for the bottom of it.
Well, it didn't offer. You and Bluffview. I have a whole new respect for you. Anybody can survive that war zone? Sorry.
Mr. Holcroft?
Yes.
Here's the issue that I've got with a single garage, single driveway, open to starter homes, families, things like that. That's Bluffview Townhomes. That's what you get.
You realize though that we're talking townhomes that are attached and there's really nowhere
How is
where
it
you
any
can.
different if they're townhomes that are attached or single family that have the same conditions of a single car garage and a single drive and private streets? Just because they're attached or detached doesn't.
You're
change the
saying that all of
conditions.
these have 2 parking places off the street in each of these condos?
what
and
This would have the same thing.
These have single car garages that the families load up with bikes and toys and junk and whatever, so they can't park in their garage. So they park out in the streets, and it's a disaster. And what you're requesting, the reason why I'm having a problem with that lower area, because what you're requesting is this.
Yeah. I was just talking to James, apparently he's been communicating back and forth.
We
to
talked a
you.
little bit earlier today,
Yeah.
and it was a very similar conversation to what
That we had. We've been trying to evaluate having an adult community versus letting anybody buy. We have some issues, legal issues, with whether we can even do that.
You understand? If you want to go adult community or not, I don't care. But I'm going to look at it different. If it's an adult community, then what you have is, I think, workable. If it's not an adult community, then this is what we're looking at having a problem with.
Yeah. Well, what I hear you saying is if that was an adult community, then you don't have as much issue with it and you'd probably be okay with it.
More
You know,
okay with it. I still
yeah,
think there's a few things
yeah,
that need to be tweaked.
Yeah.
but
We've been looking at it. Of course, we got a project over in Brio that we're doing and we have the same concerns there, even though Brio isn't an adult community, you go through there and that's all there are is adults, there's almost no children in the entire community. So we see that there is a demand for that market and we want to consider it. As I talked to James, he's kind of suggesting that we take a couple of weeks and reevaluate and maybe come back with a proposal. James, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, we did have a conversation and it was a good one about the demand. My thing is that I really need the 2 weeks is to understand that demand. Rio Virgin Park is full. Winter Haven is full. our development to the other side of us, Horizon West, they're full. We don't know the demand for this product and what is there, and we also want to consider introducing a new concept with the nightly rental. Oh, and that's another thing with this, but that has to go with this. I mean, this proposal was a proposal with a plan of a nightly rental. And we understand that people around there don't like it because of the kids and because of the new neighbors in there. But looking around what little I did today, especially after mine and Troy's conversation, I've been running like crazy today. And there is a demand for it. I don't know how big that demand is yet for this.
Well, I'm not saying that you have to go that route or whatever. I just don't want something like
Right.
this
And it makes sense.
clogging
Yeah.
up that area.
I can understand that point. And so we understand that it needs to be a bigger garage or an adult community. Our densities are critical on this project. The soils are terrible on this project. However you want to look at it, unless you can figure out how to get a house to float on blue clay and not crack without thousands of dollars of excavation work, this project doesn't pencil. And so we have to figure out how to get those densities there and still make this project work and be an asset to the community. If it's 55 and older, I'm not against a 55 and older community. I just need to know that it's not going to be a 40-year build out to fill out those homes. If there's a demand for that, we're okay with that. So if we had 2 weeks to look at that and evaluate that and maybe bring a proposal along with the nightly rental proposal, that would really help.
Yeah, I suggest you do it. My concerns are the width of those roads. Again, I think the densities in there, the one-car garages, I'm all concerned about all of those. I'm also concerned about our discussion about short-term rentals. And there are some places very logical for that within the development, but not where we're going to put affordable housing.
Right.
Okay, and affordable housing, if that means starter homes, then it means children and backyards and more space and room for cars. Affordable housing isn't a 10-foot setback for children. It's not inadequate room for parking. Those 4 stalls on the sides are simply not going to take care of how many people drive in starter homes. Often both the husband and wife are going to be working.
You're right.
And they're going to have 2 cars plus, and so, yeah, I mean, if you want a list of my concerns, they're there. Some starter homes, I think we have some obligation to do affordable housing. It won't be affordable housing short-term rental.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
but it needs to be a nice neighborhood where people can actually feel like they're part of a community.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in talking to these people and asking them about being able to subsidize, in fact, Rio Virgin, they just do it anyway. I'm talking to a lot of the residents there. They are renting it out when they're not there to people their age, to maybe their family or their own. They're more responsible to their
adult communities might do that. Starter homes, that's not what a starter home is.
And it makes sense with Troy saying he wants a bigger garage, more parking on a starter home. And it sounds like to me like you guys would rather not this be a starter home, would rather be a 55 and older. And whether it is or not, we would like to bring both proposals.
So maybe you're suggesting we table this for 2 weeks.
And I think it would do good. And also, I've had emails from Turek. Thank you. I would really appreciate emails from each one of you. If I can contact you in any way to get feedback other than right here on the stand, that would help.
So some of our reluctance to do that, and I appreciate what you've sent, and I've read everything that's been sent.
But we
but
don't
more
know that.
appropriately, our deliberation is done here.
I understand. And it would usually be in a workshop meeting. We've had a couple here.
We could do that too.
But I think
I'm
there
sure.
was some ways that we need to do that legally.
That's appropriate in a
Appropriately.
workshop
There
where
we
we've
go.
posted it so anyone can come appropriately here. One-on-one, that's appropriate too. It's perfectly legal. It's just that the deliberation is conducted here.
It is. But even one-on-one like this, it gives we're probably in a more receptible position because it's not the pressure of 50 people behind us. And it's easier to see each other's views when it's in a little more one-on-one.
Well, and we're hearing from them, and
You are.
we're hearing from you, and then we have to deliberate.
Right.
So
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like one question. You say you have to keep the densities where they are because of the soil.
Yes.
Now, is that really true, or can
It's
you
true
lower the
enough.
density?
I drove up to Salt Lake and had a very extensive conversation with the previous developer, and that is the reason he walked from this project.
I think you could lower the density myself. To make
What
it-
makes you think that?
Well, is it profitability then?
Yeah, I mean, you can have a project that goes to a point and then goes belly up, or you can have a project that builds out and is an asset to the community. That's your two options. And I know it's not your concern, it's our concern to understand that this project is feasible. It's your concern to make sure that this is
But
going
a
to be
lot
an
of it,
asset
how
to the
much you
community.
purchased the property for too, right? On
Right.
your profitability.
And we've
If
got her
if
at
it
a
was
good
blue,
price.
blue clay, didn't you?
It's
might
not
not pay as
if it is
much.
blue clay, it is blue.
Well, I know it's blue clay. Yeah, it's bluebird. There's mines out in there. I know about that.
Yeah. We would, projects where I can give you 10,000 square foot lots and bigger, they're easy projects. We pushed one through in tenth the time that we've had on this project. We would love to be able to propose bigger density or lower density, bigger lots. It's easier for us, but it's not feasible
Well,
on this project.
that's a lot of the problem here, I think, is the density. You understand that, don't you?
I think it's the density as the product we're proposing. If we look at age restriction, I don't know that density is an issue.
I still have some issues with those one-car garages and
If
narrow
you go,
streets.
if you drive through these streets that are the age restriction, and again, we'll look at that. We're not,
I understand what it
They
looks
don't
like
look like
now,
this.
but not what it could look like.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, if that's all the discussion, I'll go ahead and make a motion to table Z-17-25 till our November 8th city council meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second to table.
Turek, aye.
Nice night.
Bellis and I.
Granger, aye.
IVI.
Okay, that is tabled. Are you thinking the next one, James, you want to table also with the?
Yeah, I think.
I think it's only appropriate, yeah.
There's no project.
Probably
One
table it, but
leans on the other.
I do want to have some discussion on that one a little bit.
Because it is an area, right? So
We want to discuss that now or when it comes before us.
Um,
We don't have a project we're even looking at.
Yeah, we don't know what we're.
It's true. I don't know. If we're gonna talk.
yeah, that's fine. We can do it later. No
Okay.
big deal.
I'll entertain a motion on B then.
So I'll make a motion that we table an ordinance adopting zone change request Z-17-27, creating a residential rental short-term overlay zone located approximately Bella Vista Drive.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second.
IVI.
Granger, aye.
Bellis and I.
Nice night.
Turek, aye.
All right, both of those items will be tabled for 2 weeks. Thank you. Item C, consideration to approve an ordinance adopting zone change request Z-17-30 to change zoning designation from R16, single-family residential, 6,000 square foot minimum lot to R2, 1 and 2 family residential, located approximately 300 north, 300 east. Applicant TB Property Development, LLC.
thank you, Mayor. As stated, this is a request for Z-1730. It's 2 weeks holdover is now complete. Ready for council action. Again, the Planning Commission held their public hearing on September 20th earlier this year, and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of Z-17-30 for the zone change from R16 to R2 onto you, the City Council. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have in your 2-week time period. If you want to go back and see, You know, again, that thing we showed you, we could put that back on, just, you know, that's why they brought it back was these, but I think everybody's had a chance to see the difference between 5 individual lots versus the 6 units in the form of 3 duplexes, so.
How many garages do those duplexes have?
Well, they may not have any. It's just that in the residential zone, they'd have to have a covered parking and a non-covered parking.
Well, if there's no discussion,
Well,
go ahead, you can discuss it.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think given the difficulties of that lot and the way I just think it makes a lot more sense to me to have a single access off 300 North and where the density isn't changing.
Now,
I have a little less stress.
I would
understand
have
your
a tendency to
concerns.
agree that your density is going to change. Because they can show you a drawing that says we could do this, let's see them do it. You know, you can throw it at me and try and intimidate me with it. It ain't
What's
gonna-
the max?
Number one, they ain't going to sell doing that.
What's the max that an R2 could
You
do?
could, an R2 can give you 6.
Right.
An R16 can give you 5 if you do that, but at the same time, you got to look at feasibilities. I mean, can I draw you a picture and say I could do this, but what's the reality of that happening? I just see, because I guess I've been through several of these things, that every big lot in this community that you've seen, you'll start to see this coming at you. You open the door, you're going to see it coming. Because we've had this. The previous councils looked at it and said, that isn't what we want in our community. We want single-family homes. People are going to come in and add to the community, not rental opportunities. And that's what duplexes tend to be, is rental units. And so I guess that's why one of the reasons I've been so adamantly opposed to this type of thing is, number one, I don't want to see that begin to be what comes at us, because I've seen it happen. It's started, and previous council said, no, that isn't what we want to see. And so I look at a project that was very similar to this. It was on 400 North and about 50 East. Came with similar, hey, in fact, they wanted 3, if I remember, 3 duplexes. And that council said, no, we don't really like that. We want single family homes. And right now you've got 4 very nice single family homes that fit in there. And it added to that particular piece of property, to that neighborhood. It really made it a better situation than having an apartment complex in the middle of it. So I guess that's one of the reasons that I fight against this.
So
you see an alternative of they're just building 4 homes and getting better exits out to 300
Exactly.
rather than going for 5
That's
or
what
6.
I look at and say, you could build 4 very nice homes in there that would add to that neighborhood, would be an asset to the neighborhood, single family homes that people are going to come into and add to the community. They aren't rental units that people really generally are there for short terms and really don't buy into your community. They're just there to stay in and out again, in and out, in and out.
So you're thinking the one driveway would be off 300 East and it would be at the north end of the property?
My thought process is that's the way I would see that. You'd have 300 North, you'd have a couple of entrances there, and you'd have one off 300 East to come back in. Similar to maybe what you're seeing here. But I guess part of what I look at is in single family residents, even if they are rental, usually they're long-term rental. There's people that are there to raise families, to be a part of the community. They're not there for 3 to 6 months and roll over, which generally happens in more duplex apartment type housing.
if you got a family that's got a couple of kids and are in that situation, it's a pretty good spot right across from the high school or the elementary school too. I mean, I understand that
I
too.
could understand that, but you go up and down that street and you've got that type of setup, 2 blocks south and 2 blocks north, you've got 6 and 12 plexes, if that's what you're trying to get into. You're right across the street's a little handier, but I just see it, if you want to say it, the camel's nose coming through the door, here it starts. And because especially our downtown is we have big lots, we have big things down there, older homes that are starting to deteriorate, and you've got developers slobber over this type of product. They want to come in. And so when you start it here, you say, okay, where do we stop?
I think I tend to agree with Councilman Turek on this issue. I don't We're opening Pandora's box, I think.
Drew, I'm concerned that it looks like an either or alternative, and there might be 4 different drawings that could resolve some of that access to a street. I don't like the idea of 5 additional driveways coming out there. I like this one because of the way that it's accessing 300 North, but I'm not sure that there aren't some other drawings that could be submitted that might have some common access on.
Yeah, I go back to the old adage, it's zoned R16 today, but I don't see why it can't change to some bigger, nicer lots.
Well, you can always go bigger. Let's don't think we have to rezone it to anything. I mean,
That's
just,
exactly what I'm saying. I don't know why we can't look at it and I understand developers. I mean, we've seen it. They want numbers means dollars. I have a hard time with that because I look and say, you know what, you can build a twice the size nice house and lot. And in my opinion, you can ask 2.5 times as much for it and get it than you can out of a, but there again, that's my limited perception of things.
Drew, how big is that lot? Do you remember?
Not quite an acre.
Just
it's 0.9 something.
But that's, your whole downtown is generally in the older part of town is 1 acre lots. That's what you've got down through there.
See, I'm not as concerned about the nose of the camel in the tent because you have some greater densities not very far away.
Correct.
So mixed use, if that's the name of the game, is mixed use. You already have some mixed use. I think I just heard
We
you
have a
say
little of
that.
that, but if you recall, especially in your general plan, what was the outcry from your residents? We were showing that downtown, and what did you hear? We don't want this product in our downtown.
Yeah, well, I live in Green Springs, so.
I see. Okay.
Well, and if I may,
I remember those people talking about the mayor's yard down there.
If I may, if it is zoned R16 and people, they divide it up. I mean, the way and driveways are going to be driveways. I mean, in some instances, our hands get tied that way. So we need to be careful with that as well. I'm just throwing out, helping you in your thoughts.
Yeah.
Is that that would be the case? Now you could look at a subdivision plat and you have your say in that, but again, they do have that opportunity. The only thing about this lot is, and again, I told you 2 weeks ago, I told the planning commission 3 weeks before that. I've seen this lot come to staff developers in every way, shape, or form you can imagine. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating in any way. And I look at this and the thing that stands out to me, and I totally get, the comments on both sides actually, for this. The thing that drives me, that actually, again, I often tell you, I peel the tomato, the onion back. 300 East is the road that really, for me, is what's the problem. When, for this lot, the problem is 300 East. You can't get around it. It is what it is. 300 East is the problem on this lot. Again, you can pull that onion apart any way you want. 300 is the problem. The volume of 300 East.
But you've got 2 homes just adjacent.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying with it and it is what it is. 300 East and the school right there. It is the issue with this poor lot.
Yeah, I can tell you that your school traffic comes 300 north. It doesn't go north of 300 because they all come south of 300 and they hit 300 north. That's the traffic pattern up there.
The volume's much less when you get above 300 north.
So those homes that would be accessing 300 to the north are going to have a lot less traffic than your 300 north traffic that you're showing on this proposal.
Well, I'm just saying as a whole, I'm not even throwing the school wholly. It's just that people use 300 to get up and down from north down to Telegraph more than any other streets, right or left. I'm just, as I've peeled back and looked at this thing again, I've had so many.
I asked the same question. Is it because they were looking at high densities on that lot? And that's what they've been looking at. Everybody wants to cram 10 pounds of potatoes in a 3-pound sack.
I'm not even looking at densities on the lot. I'm just saying for this lot.
When you talk about proposals have been coming to you.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
The proposals of how do I stuff as much as I can on a 1 acre lot?
Well, I've seen some stuffing, believe me.
That's
12.
That's the argument.
12.
Exactly that.
I've seen some 12 people. I'm going, no, don't even. you know, you can get up and walk out of my conference room now because that's not going to happen, but.
Our transportation master plan shows a frontage road. And if it does go through and connect, that would increase traffic on 300. I like the idea of limiting stuff off. If something could be done to where it all comes off of 300 north instead of 300 east, I'm a lot more comfortable with it in that regard.
You know, this isn't going to be helpful to solve this, but the irony of this piece for me is that I came within a signature of owning it in the late 90s. And I sat down with a pencil and paper that long ago when the little white house was sitting on it. And I tried to decide what to do with it. And I ended up letting it go because it just, nothing really fit right for what I wanted and the money that I needed to make. And so maybe there's another option that hasn't been discovered yet that can meet both of those concerns.
You heard my piece.
Any other discussion on this proposal? Anybody want to make a stab at it?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we deny ordinance, zone change Z-17-30 to change zoning regulation from R16 to R2.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second.
IBI.
Granger, nay.
Ellison, nay.
Nice and I.
Turek, aye.
All right, that passes 3-2. We'll move on to item D, consideration to approve an ordinance adopting zone change request Z-17-31 to change the zoning designation from R1 agricultural to C1 service commercial located approximately corner of Merrill Road and Sandia Drive, Washington County School District. I believe it is the request of the school district that they have this tabled so that we can get together and discuss better options for that piece. Any discussion on that?
Well, it seems like now part of the tabling is because they want more clarity in our new PUD.
Right.
Then just whatever workshops we have to do or things we need to do to hasten that and get it on the books so that people can react to it. I'm a believer that the policy is specific so that it can be governed by staff rather than so much of our time to do it. And so in writing the policy that we do have some design standards that they can react to rather than trying to guess what's on our minds, which I think we've put some of these developments lately in that mode. Try to guess. And I think we can maybe be a little more specific with a simple ordinance, but some clarity to the ordinance that's helpful so that staff can react to it then rather than come here and also try to read our minds, which I think is difficult for the developers. It's difficult for staff and quite frankly consumes a lot of our time that maybe could be handled somewhere else. So I think we need to get that to completion with whatever we have to do. Mayor, I'm on board.
Where are we at on that?
My planning commission is going to look at it next week and make a hopefully they'll be able to make a recommendation onto you folks and you'll see it. Then are you guys doing the Tuesday before Thanksgiving or canceling that week? I can't remember. You're doing the Tuesday. You would, I think, see it. Would that be right? I think that would be right. You would see it on the 21st. I think that's the Tuesday.
They take it the first week, then it gets us the fourth week.
Right.
I guess Denise on the election night.
Well, and if we need to move it up, let's move it up and have a special meeting. Let's
get it.
I'd like to see what similar
Well,
policies
the problem
look like
is that
from neighboring cities.
you're going to see it on the 21st, and then you have you folks can either, this is one of those ones you can let it sit for 2 weeks and stew or vote on it that night, or table it, or we'll kind of leave that open ended because we talked about your 2-week sitting period was for zone changes and general plan amendments, but you still have I think that opportunity to do either one. To be honest with you, but you will be seeing it, hopefully a recommendation to you on, come your 21st meeting. Now, did the school get a hold of you, Mayor, the school district? Because I never heard a word that they wanted to do that. So I'm fine either way. It doesn't matter.
They called
But
me.
I guess I'm kind of wondering what we're going to do on this. If they're waiting to see that, how we want to proceed with them.
Well, what we can do is table it for 2 weeks, which would give them a chance to come through to see what our planning commission is going to recommend. That would give them a feel for it. Because at that point, they could, if they felt comfortable enough, they could go ahead and rezone and then bring through what.
Yeah, maybe I'll try to reach out and talk to them about what that's going to look like anyway. I mean, it's the commercial
wouldn't
one's
help.
not going to change hardly next to nothing. That's not the reason we redid all the PUDs in the first
Correct.
place. We just are making that, and we're just going to make it more presentable out there.
Probably would be helpful
and
if
push
they
it.
kind of had a feel for what exactly.
Yeah, because really all it entails is that they'll have that option to get it zoned that way, and then they can defer. How we're going to write this is defer, because people can bring their plans if they want. I'm not telling them they have to come get a PUD, zone thing done, then come back later. I'm going to give them the option to come full bore right up front and say, here's what I want to offer you. I don't want this, zone it, and then take time to come back. I'm ready to go now. So I'm going to give them the option to defer their site plan to a later date is how I'm going to try to do that. And Jeff and I will talk that over, but that's kind of my plan right now with this new PUD, all of them, is that I'm going to give them the option to come for you full bore right off the bat and show everything. Or if they want just to know they get the zoning to feel the warm and fuzzy and then come back with the design later, I'm going to give them that defer, but they still have to follow step 3, 4, and 5 of the process is how it's written up right now. So I'll probably get with the school district guys who have the say in this and show them what it is. And maybe 2 weeks we can modify, again, you have that option to modify and approve it with some conditions on it.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is go ahead and make the motion that we table this for a 2-week period to our next meeting. That should give us some chance to hear from the school district if they want to table further than that. Certainly they.
Well,
They can
and
do
there was a question, I guess we can't discuss till you get a second. I'll second that motion.
Let's get it through.
Yeah,
Well, we can have some discussion prior to a
Okay.
vote.
okay, a little bit.
So we got a second then?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Just some issue about whether or not we should have been amending the general plan before we moved this into
I have no problem reading my general plan when it says that all zones are allowed in a civic. I don't know how much straight and forward that gets. As far as I'm concerned, that's as black and white as it gets. Saying that in the civic design, it says zones allowed, all zones. It didn't specify, and when it didn't leave anything out when it says all zones. It meant in a civic pink colored on the map, you can ask for any one of the zones in there. And we're going to look at it by whatever the surroundings are. And I do not, with this one, what are you going to say? Well, it needs to be more red. This is one of those ones you can't pill it. You're going to be wrong with 50% and right.
We're procedurally. okay.
Yeah, and I think that's probably is those people that have asked that question probably just don't understand that
Yeah.
portion. Just take some explanation to that.
Yeah, and I tried to do it in the planning commission and with you folks is that it basically, you go to the general plan, open that up, and it says, here's what the land use map says, civics on there, and then it goes, zones allowed in the civic, all zones,
The other,
Just
all
generally-
zoning districts.
Yeah, generally, these types of things do go through the process of general plan change to zone change, and where it didn't go that way, I'm sure that's why people are asked that question, and it's
Well-
just a matter of not
yeah,
understanding.
and I think there's
Yeah.
confusion about, there has been some confusion about, what a PUD will do, but, I think there's been some confusion, both with the school district and with the citizens, that allows us the kind of restriction that we want
Correct.
and that they want. And
Correct.
that we're really much closer in agreement than they might suppose,
Yeah.
given that we
I
can
agree.
do that.
It's just
So-
understanding, I think.
So,
in the
all
process.
right, so, okay.
So Councilman Turk, you brought up that there is off of that cul-de-sac, there is that drainage that goes
Yes.
back through.
Mhm.
I went and walked that. I'd be curious if Mike could go walk that and see if it's about 4 feet wide and it's lower in grade than the two houses next to it. So
Yeah, it's kind
I
of a
don't know
perfect
that
little
much could be-
pathway. I just didn't know across. I mean, to me, that was another option.
yeah, it comes down a little bit lower than what's on the other side. So something would have to be done. But if you could go drive that and look at it, Mike, and see if there's maybe some sort of pathway, it'd certainly give the kids a better access to getting across.
Could you bring the map back up, please? Can you do that?
Just to make you aware, we're trying to we've applied for grant funding from the NRCS and the ditch that runs back there. That's to get that ditch piped all the way through. It's piped through the developments coming up there. And this will just get that remainder put through. And then there's a trail that goes on top of that.
Drew,
So that would be a trail that will go all the way through
Go
on the
up into the
backside.
top of the cul-de-sac, right? Right there about where the bulb starts.
Yeah, you know what, I can.
There's a cross gutter. Well, you can see the cross gutter right, whoops.
Oops. That
I
sounds
figured out,
interesting.
so which one we want? CO zoning lobby, CO? Maybe I'm not getting into screw mirroring. Can you pull up your Apple TV, that'll be better.
While they're waiting for that, Mayor, maybe we can go ahead and vote our table on this thing.
Let's go ahead and vote on this.
IDI.
Granger, aye.
Ellis and I.
Nice night.
Turek, aye.
All right, we'll table that for 2 weeks.
And just a little point of discussion, up where the bulb starts in that cul-de-sac, there's that cross gutter that comes across the street.
No, down further, it's
Down, just
between
down a little further.
681
Whoops,
and
next one
701.
down. Just come down right there. You can see the cross gutter in the shadow right there.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And there's an alley, it goes right clear down into the ditch. So there's an alleyway that goes through there. Those kids, so we could keep them from even coming to that intersection possibly. That's just another idea or thought.
Well, I go through the homes.
Yeah, you
No,
just.
between the
use that-
property lines right there.
Yeah,
They're gonna come down the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, you come down, so you turn them up the cul-de-sac, they come right down through that little alleyway and have this district, especially if that's a trail there. See if they pop a gate into the back of that.
Is
Yeah,
the
we'd have to
canal
look-
our property then, is it city?
Well, I'm assuming it's, we've got a right of way.
I would imagine it's only a drainage easement, would not be an access. We'd
Well,
have
we
to
just
look
tell the
into that.
kids that, hey, use the drainage easement.
Wear your shorts.
Anyway.
And that
You know,
would be
Well, we
much
might could do
preferable
support
for
to
us
do
to
something
get
a little
the kids down.
better, you know?
And that's, well, it'd be a lot nicer if we could go the other way. It's just, like I said, that was another option that popped, and I drove it out there and say, hey, maybe this,
If that canal gets piped, something's gonna have to be done with that anyway. To pipe it and bring it in.
Right.
Do you know,
It'd probably just be a drop inlet structure that
so who owns that property?
the canal company, they have fee title to that.
So,
There's quite a few encroachments where they've encroached into it. Makes it very difficult for us to clean.
Councilman Turk, I'm not as familiar with this area as you are. Is that a good collector in that cul-de-sac for the kids to?
well, yeah, what they
Get to.
actually used to do, to be honest with you, is they used to cross the kids back up the next intersection off of, yeah, go back right here, this first intersection.
You can see
Right there,
the stripe.
Cimarron. We used to cross them at Cimarron and turn them to that, where they would then come down and around the corner. Then when the light came in, we moved it down to the lighted intersection. So we now take them down to the light and cross them straight across through there.
So they're already going down that road. It would just be.
Yeah, they're
going
coming
up.
down that road. So what they do is would turn into that cul-de-sac rather than coming clear to the corner here. That was,
Yeah,
It
what
seemed
they,
to me
all
that I
the,
saw somebody crossing the Cimarron recently, but
yeah, the crossing guard is here now. To say the kids still don't cross, I stopped one day and visited with the crossing guard when this was coming up and just said, I was asking quantity of kids, how many kids are we crossing there? What's happening? Kind of told her a little bit about the property and she just said, well, I'll tell you about these kids. They don't stop. When she walks out, they don't look left. They don't look right. She said, part of it is we protected these kids so much that we haven't taught them to look for traffic. And so it's a real issue as they head down that sidewalk with the encroachment there. So that's been my biggest concern is how do we keep them out of a driveway? 'Cause-
One of my thoughts, if I could, because every lot has a setback, and why not have the developer, somebody make a 7-foot piece of.
Well, that's part of the
That's what we're
discussion that's
talking
happening.
about.
Now, that's,
You don't have to worry about, it's nice that the canal company let you do something down there.
Yeah.
That'd be alternate one I'd like to propose, pursue. But with this, within that setback area, we're not having a sidewalk, those kids can follow behind.
yeah, the school, I had that discussion with the school district and said, look,
It's all about a gate back there.
I don't think that's it. I mean, they had some other issues, but they were, when I brought that up, it was bells and whistles went off. So, okay. So I think that's part of why they.
So would that be considered a trail and deeded to the city then? And if so, wouldn't it have to be
Just make sure it's an easement.
it's,
create an easement that,
it's owned by the canal company and it's, I think, a 50-foot wide through there.
So
We don't-
7 foot wide
We
would,
wouldn't get an easement, and then the easements on the back of the property, I don't think we could put it in as a trail,
okay.
because they're
That was
called
my
out as
question.
utility easements.
That was my question.
But there's plenty of room for a trail. We could put a road in.
Yeah, that's good.
But there's existing trail
That is
further
the-
up
This other one
on the
is.
development.
That's just.
Now, see, there's the trail that's where it's already been piped.
Yeah, they piped it right there, but that's subdivision.
And
But the developer piped it.
That's part of their development, yes. But that's so they could encroach closer and not fence and, yeah.
Yeah, it's piped all the way up through there, and then it's open.
So that's what we're looking at, is we'll get it piped and then continue that trail on through there.
Well, we could
And the
always.
canal company's on board with it.
Councilman Turek, couldn't we, as an option for the PUD, have them pipe that section? And then use that as a trail? And then really, it's just the only section that's left is the school.
Well,
It's not their
I mean,
property.
yeah, it's not their property, that's exactly, yeah, it's not their property. I mean, certainly if we could work with the canal company and part of the conditioning on it, certainly. That's why I like the idea of the NRCS, if they'll fund it, that's a
Well,
no-brainer.
I would think the canal company would want us to help.
Well,
Would wanna help
we've
us
had the
help the kids
conversations with
get
the
there.
canal company. They're not gonna put money into it, but they're more than willing
But
to
they might be willing
let
to
us
let us
put
do
the
that.
trail over
Well, they'd
top
be
of it
happy
and
to
pipe
give
it.
the easement.
Let us do it.
Because right now, we're the only ones maintaining that drainage. They don't even go in and clean it, we do.
Well,
Yeah.
they let you do it. You
So-
pay for it. And St. George piped it on the
Right.
other side. I mean, it's piped. We're
So-
been willing to.
So what can we do that will create the access we want to create for these children?
Well, our
I think-
access, only real issue with access is getting them from the Pineview area in where we don't have any real easements for access coming through.
I think the district, there, you'll see some discussions come forward.
But they could come down Sandia and go up that trail and come in the backside as well. They can come down from
kids
the
are
up,
going to walk further to get to
No,
school.
they're gonna take the short.
They're not
track.
going to.
but the kids that live further up, they'd be able to come down that trail and drop in, where they can't do that now.
All right, thank you, Mike. You might as well stay here for the
I'm
next.
going to.
Okay, Item 7, surplus property, consideration to sell 1991 Ford F800 Digger Derrick as surplus property.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, Council. This digger derrick was replaced by the power department, I believe, 3 years ago. They've been using it with moving their yard out to the generation plant, so they've left it up to the old yard to help load materials. So now we're coming to the council asking for permission to put that on surplus. Our plan is to send it down to the auctions, set a minimum bid price at $20,000. That's kind of on the lower end of what trade-in values are. They told me somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000 is what we could possibly get trade-in.
What is a digger derrick?
It's what digs the holes for the power poles and sets the power
Got those
poles.
big auger.
The big auger.
Can I
I
use
just
it
want to see a
for?
picture of it.
I'll take you for a
What are you,
ride.
what are you planning, Mayor?
He's going
You can
to
stop at
enlarge
Blackberry
the,
about 6
the golf
months on
course.
the backside of it.
The golf course.
I could
Yeah,
put
it
it in
has,
those.
has a big boom that extends out and kind of a crane, but we have, right now we have 3 of them.
So trade-in's 20 grand, and then what were you saying?
We'd put a minimum bid price at 20,000, but we'd send it down to the TNT auctions. We've had really good luck down there, getting really good
Where's
prices
that?
TNT, that's
Las Vegas?
down in Las Vegas.
Ritchie Brothers, or
That's TNT.
is it?
It's like
It's like
Ritchie
Ritchie.
Brothers.
Okay.
Well, if there's no more discussion, Mayor, I'll make the motion that we deem the 1991 Ford F800 Digger Derrick as surplus property and allow them to move that along.
There you go, Ken.
There's your Digger Derrick.
Digger.
Looks more like the
I
one
want one of
on,
those just for the fun of it.
I'll
looks a lot-
second that.
lot like the one on this side.
All right.
It's an all-wheel drive.
I have a motion in a second.
Ivy, I,
Granger, aye.
Dallas and I.
Nice and I.
Terrific guy.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mike. Move on to item 10, UDOT property, consideration to accept a surplus parcel from UDOT. Real property is located at the southeast corner of 300 East Telegraph Street.
This is the parcel we discussed last night. So
Aye.
Price is right.
Yeah.
Are you ready for a motion, Mayor?
Absolutely.
Okay, I move that we accept the surplus property from the UDOT on the southeast corner of 300 East and Telegraph Street.
Oh,
Second.
Motion and a second.
Turek, aye.
Nice night.
Fellas and I.
Granger, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Item 9, anything to report from your assigned committees?
Our MPO meeting was canceled this month, so no MPO.
Okay. I'll entertain well, I'm going to say let's adjourn then. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
We're adjourned.
So adjourned.
We're going to be here all night tonight.